Did you tear your meniscus and just had meniscectomy surgery where they removed part of your meniscus, like an arthroscopic surgery? We're gonna go over the top 5 rehab mistakes that people do when recovering from this surgery. My name is Dr. Marco Lopez, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist and co-founder of the Basketball Doctors. So when it comes to meniscectomy surgeries, there's 3 different types of meniscus surgeries. The most common one is a meniscectomy, where they remove part of the meniscus that is torn. The second one is the meniscus repair. The third one is meniscus transplant. For this video, we're gonna go over more on the meniscectomy because it's very common. A lot of people get it, and that's what you'll hear in the MBA saying, like a cleanup or an arthroscopic. It's most likely a meniscectomy. So when it comes to this rehab following the surgery, the number 1 mistake that people do early on is that they get off their crutches too early. So the reason why is when you have a meniscectomy, most of the time there's no weight-bearing restrictions, meaning you can put weight on it. When you put weight on it, people are like, oh, I don't need these crutches, I could just start walking. And that's when we have people come into our clinic after these surgeries and they show up with no crutches and they're limping, their knee is bent. And that's gonna affect not only your meniscus, but also your patellofemoral joint, because you're walking with a knee bent and your knee might swell up a little bit. So make sure you just take your time and go back to the basics and use the crutches. You don't have to be non-weight bearing, because a lot of people think, oh, when I use the crutches, I can't put weight on my leg. But you're gonna use the crutches to assist you with walking, to distribute the weight and get your normal walking pattern back. Because a lot of the times people assume that these surgeries are fairly quick. And you see it on social media and you see from people like, hey, I got back to activity this quick, and we'll go over it. But you wanna take your time, because if you get off those crutches too early, like I mentioned, people start having kneecap issues and it affects your walking down the line. So just use your crutches. Start off with 2, wean off to 1, and make sure your walking's back to normal before you come off your crutches completely. Number 2 is people force range of motion too much early on after meniscectomy. So a lot of times after meniscectomy, you'll have less pain than before your surgery. If you had pain before your surgery, what happens is it feels good and they're like, okay, let's try to really crank the range of motion because we were trying to get you back to all your activities as soon as possible. But the meniscus has the highest contract pressure in the end ranges. So when you try to force your knee to straighten out too much, or when you try to bend your knee too much, what happens is that it forces the meniscus to have a little bit more pressure. And when you remove part of the meniscus there, increase the pressure, it might just irritate it. So when it comes to range of motion after a meniscectomy, just slowly progress it. Little by little. Your end goal is to get full range of motion, but you don't have to overdo it early on. Listen to your body and then really try to just slowly, gradually increase the range of motion. A lot of people are trying to really get their heel towards their butt early on, and the meniscus just doesn't like those end ranges after surgery. Number 3, a lot of the times people don't get their strength all the way back after meniscus surgery, because you start feeling good and they're like, oh, I think I'm good. And they start going back to activity, and what we fail to realize is that they need to get their quad, their hamstring as strong as they can, especially compared to the other side. You wanna be in that 90-95%, because it's not obviously like an ACL surgery, but a meniscectomy does take a toll on your knee. And when you don't have the strength for your leg as it was in the opposite leg, then you start compensating, you start avoiding that leg. So we wanna make sure when we're doing our rehab, our leg is as strong as our other leg, calves, hamstrings, quads, to ensure great outcomes down the line, and for you to make sure you're not overdoing it with your opposite leg. And we just wanna make sure you're set up for success down the line. So make sure you take your time with this rehab. A lot of people say this is a quick rehab, but it actually takes a little bit longer to make sure that you have the best setup for success. So make sure you get your strength all the way back, your quad, hamstring, calf, and get some testing on it. Number 4 is going back on that strength, is that you wanna make sure you're kind of limiting your ability to do squats early on. A lot of people after meniscectomy, they wanna get back into squats, and what happens is with these closed chain exercises after meniscectomy surgery, it might get irritated. You try to go into a deeper squat, and those deep squats put too much pressure on that meniscus joint, and what happens is then it pisses off, gets the knee swelled up, and that puts you back. So make sure you're progressing with your exercises. First, start off with light open chain, then progress to closed chain. Open chain is your foot in the air, you don't have too much pressure on the ground. Then you progress to closed chain, because whenever you start going into closed chain, it puts a little bit more pressure on the meniscus. So we want to progress to that, but we want to take it easy. A lot of people after surgery, they're like, hey, I'm doing squats 1 week out. You want to just take your time with that. And because when you do it, you won't even feel your quad working. Honestly, a lot of times when we hear people doing the squats, they're like, oh, I feel it on my knee joint. That's because the muscles aren't ready to handle that closed chain exercise. Go into more. And number 5, the one that we commonly see issues is that people go back to their sport too fast, too soon. We see it in the NBA. Robert Williams for the Celtics, he had the meniscectomy surgery, and I think he got back within a month to the playoffs, and then what happened? He ended up having another surgery. Same thing with Lonzo Ball. A lot of the times these meniscectomy surgeries are quick, but it's almost unrealistic to get back to your sport within 4 to 6 weeks, to be honest, because you go back too fast too soon, the knee swells up, it's still healing from that environment. So you wanna make sure, 1, you get your strength back, 2, you get your full range of motion, 3, you kind of grade your exposure to it. That way you make sure, like, hey, I played 1-on-1, my knee didn't swell. All right, let me try 2-on-2, then 3-on-3, 4-on-4. That's gonna set you up success for long term. Because whenever we have meniscectomy surgeries, we remove part of the meniscus. And when we remove part of the meniscus, it increases our risk for early onset of arthritis, cartilage issues, and also because the shock absorption is impaired, your knee might swell up when you overdo activities. You wanna make sure you're progressing the right way. That's why you need to have guidance through a physical therapist. If you guys have any questions regarding meniscus, graded exposure, meniscus rehab, send us a message. We're happy to help. We work with people in Los Angeles area and also online. But just to give you guys a summary, top 5 mistakes: don't get off the crutches early. 2, don't overwork that range of motion. Let it come gradually. 3, don't forget to get your strength all the way back. I know it's not an ACL surgery, but you still want to get all your strength back. Number 4 is make sure you're limiting those deep squats early on. Focus more on open chain. And number 5, don't go back too fast. If you have any questions, comment below. We'll try to answer all your questions. Hit the like button, share this video with friends and family, subscribe to our channel. We are the Basketball Doctors. Let's ball for life.